Good morning, welcome. Welcome this morning to this circle. We are all spiritual seekers, but we also recognize the value of community. And so we are united in that community this morning. So welcome if you're here for the first time or the first time in a long time. Welcome to those of you gathering online with our live stream. Welcome also if you're part of our circle regularly. We're all welcome to this place of exploration, to this place of connection and community. Welcome to this gathering of seekers who are committed to a lot of things, to diversity, where all ages and sizes, all colors and abilities, sexualities and genders, where all religions, many or none, are welcome and affirmed here. So let's open ourselves to deep wisdom. We're committed to that ongoing journey of learning, of deepening our understandings of ourselves and the world. And all the while knowing that each of us are important, valued, able to help each other live deeply and make a difference in the world. This month, we've been exploring how we as a community and as individuals on our own unique spiritual journeys of understanding are moving and can move from strength to strength. What that means is we honor and recognize the places where we are thriving, the places where we have shown that as a community and as individuals we have focused and we have traction in the spiritual journey. And so what a time to celebrate what we do well and build upon our trusted and proven skills. We've done this over the course of a few weeks. We started by focusing on our advocacy and our radical inclusion, that we might again be the place for folks that need real affirming community. We moved on to our strengths of meeting needs, partnering with and making a difference for those who need it most. It's a strength. And last week we focused on our strength and our legacy of care and compassion that helps us know our connection and cultivate that connection with each other and with the world. So today we continue to focus on those strengths. Today our strength is a place of depth, of open and expansive spirituality. What does it mean to continue that legacy of being on the edges of thought, progressive ideas, engaging life with depth in ways that are most relevant and meaningful to our lives right now in 2023, never mind 20, 40, 100 years ago, right now. So we'll explore that today, and I'm excited that we get to do that with each other.
We gather with gratitude for this place we now sit, for the reality that this is ancient and beautiful land, part of the Mother Earth, sacred in its very existence. We are grateful for this land, cared for by the indigenous ones who dwelled here, for the Cree people, Papachaise First Nation, for the Métis of Central Alberta. We recognize the hurt that has come as a result of the land and the hope of reconciliation and partnership we might live now and in the future.
So let's light our community candle. We light this candle because we celebrate the light in each of us, that valuable spark of life and love and existence. We also celebrate that it's fragile And we tend to it, not only in our own lives, but we tend to each other's light, encouraging one another. This is the light of wisdom that stretches back farther than our memories, that reaches into the birthing of the earth, the universe. And it reaches now into encompassing all the spiritual wisdom of the past and the present. That encircles not only our own religious and spiritual tradition in Jesus of Nazareth and other wisdom teachers, but it's the spark and the light that touches those like the Buddha, like Muhammad, wisdom and spiritual seekers the world over. So we light this candle because we celebrate the light that dwells within each of us and that we continue to seek on our journey. So let's sing that we're all on a path. No judgment of where we are. No comparison of where each of us is on the path that we would like to be on. But we're all on a path and we support each other wherever we are. Let's sing as a community. If that was a new song for you, we're going to sing it again in just a few moments. That was your practice? Next time's for real, okay? We'll just take a few moments and share what's going on in the life of this community and the work that we do together. I want to share one thing right off the bat, and that is the fact that we have a meeting. Well, it's not the most exciting, but it's important work in the life of a community and in the life of our work together. So next week is our annual general meeting. It happens after our morning gathering. So you're invited, if you're staying for the meeting, you're invited to also stay for lunch and to help provide that lunch. So you can see there's a division of labor. If you're staying for lunch, we can share some sandwiches and fruit and veggies and all that kind of stuff. And we're not asking you to bring food for 100. We're asking if you could bring food for whoever's in your group plus about 4 others, and that way then we'll all contribute and have enough to eat. I should also say, it would be terrible of me to say that this is a downer and a bummer of a time. Our annual general meeting is also a time of invigorating because we're talking about all the amazing things that we've accomplished over the past year and some of the vision that we have for what's coming up, including our leadership and including, well, I'm getting smiles as if I'm now spinning a story into something else. So anyway, come next week. Our transition team has an update. Joyce, thank you.
Okay, Chris, you gave me the perfect opportunity because the week after the annual meeting, we're going to have a celebration of sharing and conversation to explore where we are going into the future. So Please mark March the 12th on your calendar. You know, you just need to block Sunday off for the whole month of March and know that you're going to be here doing some fun things together. And that's important because without question, the most common comment we have received as we've been answering these 4 questions has been the sense of community and acceptance that folks feel in this place. So let's do it. So the question for this week is one that's a little bit different. Some people have said that SSUC is the best kept secret in Edmonton. So the question is, how do we let the cat out of the bag? Now, many of us in this room are relatively new to social media stuff. So you young folks, okay, got it, need to tell us what we need to do to expand and let others know that we exist. So all 4 questions are in the messenger this week. If you have not had a chance to answer and you want to make sure we hear what you have to say, please respond by Friday, because then that will be when we will take all of that data and continue to work on it. And please do consider joining us on March the 12th for what we're calling the Conversation Cafe. It will give you each an opportunity to sit down at a small table, have a discussion with 3 or 4 other people about what you're thinking and what your dreams and ideas are for this congregation. And we really need to hear from all of you. So we will have lunch, and so we hope you will join us at that time. Thank you.
Sometimes one gets marvelous segues. Thank you, Chris. So, in the light of that, last night was the coldest night of the year walk, and 4 of your intrepid SSUC people ventured out, along with 2 of our friends. And, you know, I was just thinking, you know, the whole idea that this was an evening of care within a community, and we were so connected because of this going on across Canada. And I want to give you some of the statistics. So bear with me while I go to, because these statistics are updated in real time. Mine are not. These are close to. So SSUC's team, that means all of us, raised $4,225 to date. Fundraising continues until the 31st of March. So if anybody feels that, wow, this is the time to go over the top, this is the time to go over the top. The fundraising for the Bissell Center as of, I think I took this at 9 a.m. this morning, was, let me find us, Edmonton Bissell Center, $186,985.54. I don't know who gave 54 cents. But as they say, every little bit counts. I mean, that is fantastic. And by the way, also going on in Edmonton, that's disconcerting. It's the first time I've looked up and seen my face there. Okay. Edmonton Millwoods, in support of, well, their walk was Millwoods, in support of the Adira Recovery Center, raised $58,500. But are you ready to have your minds blown? Canada-wide, coldest night of the year, raised, as of 10 a.m. this morning, $12,234,836. Isn't that fantastic? And I really don't want to kind of belabor this, but this was the most fabulous event to be part of. Bissell Center went all out. They had a a wonderful send-off. We did exercises, which Jacob and I found we were a bit wobbly at. But literally, it was young and old taking part. There were kids being rolled around in strollers. There were people of our age and older, and everything in between. All colors, all sizes, all shapes. It was a fantastic event. It really made you feel kind of want to do this again next year. So hope I've inspired at least 2 or 3 of you to come along next year and come out and support, to walk for and fundraise for, but you've done that already. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. So good to be with you in the room again. If you're new, I'm Zoe. I'm part of the leadership team at Emberwood. And if I haven't seen you for a while, it's great to see you. I'm here, like always, to remind us that we are nature. So you could push your feet into the floor if that feels good. You could start to notice your breathing. You don't need to change anything about it. Just noticing what it feels like to bring air into your lungs and belly, and what it's like to exhale fully back into the world. If it's comfortable for you, you might close your eyes. I invite you to think about spider webs. That's the response I was looking for. You're like, why? So you'll close your eyes, you'll imagine a spider web, those little raindrops caught on it, sun shining through it, and we'll think about the surprising strength of a spider web, found in its fragility, its very structure allowing it to hold up life, to catch life. Your mind's eye might trace the hexagon shape. And we think about the strength of the spider web, which is found in its capacity for expansion, its ability to be flexible, its ability to stretch 2 or 3 or 4 times its size. We think about the fact that one strand can break and the rest of it remains as is. And so as we picture that spider web, raindrops, sun shining through it, stretching between trees, between grass, we remember that our strength too is found in our capacity for expansion, for flexibility, and to stretch beyond our limits.
It's our time for all ages. I want to welcome anyone who wants to be closer and part of this time to come to the carpet or to come to the front row chairs. And I want to introduce you to my friend Ruth here. Ruth is going to share a story with us this morning and have a conversation with us. Let's listen to Ruth now.
Lovely microphones. It's really hard to hold a book and wave your hands around and have a microphone. So, or why don't you hold the book?
I'll hold the book. Okay.
Way better. So this is the story called, Is That Story True? How many times have you asked, is that story true? Yeah, I ask it a lot, especially when my kids are telling me the stories. It's written by a woman named Laura, and, so I'm going to have to say, Laura Ali, sorry. I'm having trouble reading today. And by Margaret Kyle, because Margaret did the pictures, and you're going to be looking at the pictures while I tell you about the story. Maggie and her mummy got into bed every night, and they heard a story. Mummy told the story, and Maggie listened. And she always had her stuffy with her. Maggie got to pick the book. But every single night she asked exactly the same question. Mummy, is that story true? And Mummy always answered. One night they had a story about a little girl who lived on the prairies a long time ago. She went to a one-room school, and she had a pet, a chicken. She had 2 brothers, too. In their home, they had a little shed. And in that little shed, that was their bathroom. It was outside. They had to go outside into the outhouse. One day, her brothers locked her into that outhouse, and they let the goat out, and then the goat knocked the outhouse right over. You can imagine what trouble those brothers got into. Maggie said, is that story true? And Mom said, well, the story was written by a lady who really lived, and she wrote down all her memories in a book. And then in that book is the stories we read today. Now, I'm not sure if they happened exactly the way she remembered them, but it does give us a true story of that time and that place. Maggie put on her, I'm thinking about that frown, and she crawled under the covers. The next night, Mummy told her a story about a shepherd. He went looking after his sheep, and every single day he'd bring them back to the sheepfold, and he'd let them in, and then he'd count, make sure that he had each one. One night, there was a sheep missing. And so even though it was getting dark, he went searching for that sheep. He looked everywhere, in the field and in the forest. And when he got to the very deep part of the forest where there's wild animals, he heard a little sound. He found that sheep behind a rock. It was shaking with cold and fear. Maggie said, was that story true? And Mummy said, well, do you remember when you got lost? Yeah, said Maggie. I got lost, and you looked, and you looked, and you looked, and you found me. I think I know how that sheep felt. Well, then, said Mummy, the story's true. The next night, Maggie and her mummy read a story about a king who got one wish, and he wished that everything he touched would turn into gold. Maggie said, "That's great." And her mum said, "Maybe. Keep listening." So he touched the rose and it turned gold. He realized his clothes had become gold, and gold is heavy, and so walking around was hard, and he got tired and hungry. So he reached for some food, and it turned gold. He was hungry, he was tired. He called for his children to cheer him up. And they came and ran, and they gave him a big hug. And they turned into gold statues. Maggie said, "Was that story true?" Mummy said, "Well, I don't think anybody can touch things and they turn to gold. But think about when you're greedy. And think about when you want and want and want and you don't share. Sometimes you want more and you end up missing the things that are really important. Do you think maybe that part's true?" Maggie frowned her "I'm thinking about it" frown, and she crawled in under the covers. The next night, she told a story about a beautiful garden, and the children were having fun. They were smelling the flowers, and they were eating the fruit from the trees. And then the giant who owned the garden came home. And he looked around at everybody in his special garden, and he shouted and he stamped and he scared the children, and they raced away. And then the giant made a great big wall around his garden, and the kids couldn't come in. But the snows came, and the snows filled up the garden, and it wasn't beautiful anymore. It was kind of sad. Everybody missed, well, Giant missed the garden because it was snowy, and the kids missed the garden because they couldn't get in. And then, after a long, long time, the giant heard a drip, drip. The snow is melting. He looked out the window, and there was crocuses coming up through the snow. He was really excited. And when he went outside, he saw in the garden, wandering around, the children had climbed over that stone wall, got into the garden. And the giant said, "The children brought the spring back." Maggie said, "Was that story true?" And Mummy said, "Well, what happens when you are really selfish and you don't share beautiful things? How do you feel inside?" Maggie thought, "Lonely? Yeah, sometimes." Do you think that part of the story is true? Maggie frowned her "I'm thinking about it" frown and crawled under the covers. And then she said, "Mummy, I've been thinking." Mummy said, "What have you been thinking about?" "I've been thinking that sometimes stories are true on the inside, even if they're not true on the outside." Mummy smiled. She said, "I love you, Maggie." And Maggie asked, "Is that story true?" And Maggie looked up at her mum. Her mum kissed her on the forehead and said,
absolutely true.
Do you have any stories that you know are true inside you? Do you have true stories?
Yes.
You don't want to talk in the mic?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Is there sometimes you know a story is not true, it didn't really happen, but it kind of teaches you something? Chris tells us a lot of stories that might be true and might be not true, but they teach us something, right? Thanks for your story.
You're welcome, Ruth. Thanks for telling this story to us. And thanks for listening, everyone. It's time for Kid Spirit, and we're going to have a time to tell other stories and a time to do some fun things together. So Daisy and Ariane are waiting for you if you'd like to go with them.
I think I want to take.
Lawrence Krauss is a theoretical physicist. He has been a staunch advocate for science education, a spokesperson for the cause of scientific humanism, and an active defender of the free thought movement. He is currently foundation professor in the School of Earth and Space Exploration and Physics Department in Arizona State University.
Science is fun. We are hardwired to love to solve puzzles, and science is one great puzzle. Science enhances our lives just as music, art, and literature do by changing our perspective of our place in the cosmos. The aha experience that you have when you learn something new or you understand something you never understood before is orgasmic. Science is fun. And in fact, I think most children know that. The problem with many schools is we take the fun out of science. part of the fun is asking questions. And I think we have to understand that in our schools, we need to spend more time asking questions and less time worrying about facts. You know, I've been called a militant atheist, and it always amuses me. I don't know what a militant atheist does, but more importantly, in our society, if you simply question whether God exists publicly, you're called a militant atheist. But surely we want to encourage questioning, open questioning of everything. In a healthy society, nothing should be sacred. No idea should be beyond questioning. And if questioning the universe makes me a militant atheist, then I'm proud to be a militant atheist. But as far as talking to people about things, well, I think it depends on the audience and it depends on the individual. Sometimes I think one has to provoke and one has to be willing to say that, you know, your ideas are wrong. So I think when one's talking to individuals, you have to tailor your argument to the individual. Sometimes it's worthwhile being provocative, sometimes even offensive, if necessary, because you're not offending people, you're offending their ideas. And I think that's what's important, that no idea is beyond reproach. But I think it takes all kinds. Sometimes it takes humor. I think what one shouldn't be is patronizing. And there are a lot of people who have incorrect views about the universe. It doesn't mean they're stupid. It means that they haven't had that discussion before. And I think being willing to enter open discussion fearlessly is important. But it's equally important not to be overwhelmed or kowtowed by what people think is proper. That it's not proper to talk about God, that it's not proper to question God. Surely open questioning and a willingness to try and find the truth is more important than people's feelings. I try not to describe myself as any ist, except maybe, I suppose, a scientist. Humanism means many things to me, and the good aspects of that are that I'm willing to openly question the universe and follow wherever the universe takes me to answer those questions. The fact that I care about other humans, the fact that I care about humanity, and ultimately want to work with others to try and improve the human condition. That I recognize the value of others and the value of ideas. All of those things represent humanism to me, and in that sense, I guess I would be proud to be called a humanist.
My life flows on in endless song above the lamentations. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love inspires round all the earth. How can I keep from singing? Through all the
Well, that should just be the reflection right there, I think. Beautiful. Well, could we move from the sublime to the ridiculous? You know when you start cleaning your house? And you begin with this little goal. I'm going to clean my pantry or my office, or in the case of what you're currently looking at, my junk drawer. And then you realize that when you start cleaning that you need a place to put some of that stuff, so you have to clean out some other place. And then before you know it, your whole house is upside down. And it all starts with one little thing. Well, this week I was doing some reorganizing of some files and books that Nancy left in the office, and that for weeks have been on my office floor. Needing a place for them, I started organizing some bookshelves in a different part of the office. And by the end of the week, I had everything that was on those shelves stacked about 4 feet high in about 17 piles in the middle of everything. And I'm sure there's a reflection in all of that somewhere, but that's not where I'm going. Here's where I'm going. I found some very interesting things in those piles. And I want to share one of them. Here is one. This is a little document called Listening to One Another. Sermons preached at Southminster and Steinhauer United Church, 1986. Ooh. Now, 1986 was a different time, but I was fascinated by this little tidbit written by Garth Mundell on July 6, 1986. Do you want to hear it? Okay. This summer, we have focused our attention on listening to each other, essential if we are to grow as people. We are all theologians. We all have theologies, understandings of what we believe and why. And that determines and shapes our responses and our reactions to life and its experiences. A radical reformation of our theology is long overdue. Not just a rewriting in more contemporary language or a further application of it to contemporary living. No, the need is a radical reforming of our understandings, which will require us to dismantle those theological tenets which we consider to be the foundation even, the cornerstone even, of our religious tradition. Taking apart and taking down what has been built upon previously sacred cows, like our creeds, and upon which a superstructure has been built over the centuries, which we can no longer defend, either with our own experience or our own commitment. Whew. 1986! That's 37 years ago, in case we want to do the math. I was delighted to read that because it shows to all of us that we have a history in this community of pushing toward a more open and relevant spirituality. That this is not anything new. Mundell goes on to explain some of his views and understandings in hopes of laying out what kind of reconstruction is needed. A long custom of taking apart and putting back together. And it's still a need, isn't it? It's been an ongoing need. And should be a need in every religious tradition. This constant reevaluating. But it isn't, is it? You don't find that everywhere because it's hard work. It takes a lot of effort, and it's tiring to always be readjusting one's ideas and thoughts and understandings. But that never daunted Southminster or Steinhauer or Southminster Steinhauer or SSUC. It never daunted us. A long custom of doing that. rethinking about what it means to be a spiritual person, what is needed and what isn't. Let's go back further than 1986. I want to read to you part of a letter that was written to a first century group of people struggling with what it means to be part of their spiritual community. These people gathered in Rome, and it was a time after a very inspiring leader had come about, had done some teaching, had also turned the whole house upside down, and they were struggling now to rethink. They had all grown up in the Jewish tradition, and now they're reconsidering what it means to reform, dismantle, to adjust, what priorities and understandings they can get behind and what needs to be discarded for a new time. So here's a letter to those early people struggling with what it means to be Jewish after having heard about Jesus' teachings and struggling with what that means to how they might now be a community together. This comes from a letter to the people in Rome. Here's what I want you to do. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and make that your spirituality. Make that your religion, your gift to the world. Do not become so well-adjusted and conform to this world that you accept without questioning. Instead, be transformed by the renewing of your mind so that you bring out the best in yourself and others, developing a well-formed maturity in knowing and doing what is good and right. Here in this letter, what is the encouragement given to this fledgling community in the task of trying to restructure who they are and what they're about for a new time and new place? They're not warned to suck it up and conform. They're not told that the old ways are the best ways. They're not told to take it or leave it. They're not told to abandon their community altogether if they don't agree. Instead, they're told to reevaluate what their spirituality demands of them. Not rules and dogma, but encouraged to make their everyday actions be the measure of their lives. Wow. That's a glimpse into something that's both ancient and flexible. They're encouraged to keep growing and evolving in their efforts to do good, giving space for their minds to be renewed, to be open to change, to be there for each other. And is that any different than what our community was talking about in 1986? And really throughout its history, even today. This is one of our many strengths as a community. Many of us have been part of many faith traditions, many congregations, and that's not always the case. It's a particular strength of this community. We are skilled at examining our tradition and reframing what helps us most, not in what to believe, but in how to live. What it means to live by a certain understanding of values, in creating a place to belong, and in constantly evolving and expanding our understandings. And then when we do learn some new personal revelations or gain new facts or understand our connection in new ways, these are truths that we also then have to hold really lightly because they too might change. Being flexible is harder than being rigid. We just put that out there. But we have always been, and we are, up to that challenge. Because what seemed right and okay for us yesterday will not necessarily seem okay today. Oh no, do I have to go through this again? Do I have to rethink everything? Maybe yes. And then what we come up with today may not be right tomorrow. You know how it is when you write something and then you go back to it and you look at it and you think, what was I thinking? Let me tell you, never be a preacher and look back what you preached 10 or 15 years ago. Don't do that. This is what it is to mature in thought, to evolve, to expand, to quote that ancient text, to be transformed by the renewal of our minds. Or from a different translation of that text, to be changed from the inside out. Some current wisdom, psychologist and spiritual director Bill Curley writes and puts it this way. Wise and useful spirituality is one that focuses on compassion and justice. One that pays attention to those who the Jesus tradition called the least of these. Why is one who questions that called a militant atheist? Oh, there's that term again. If so, we all need an atheistic tent meeting. Is that an oxymoron or not? An atheistic tent meeting so we can come to the altar of good and healthy questioning and skepticism. The truth is that we must be willing to become ongoing students of learning, of questioning, of curiosity, and develop a willingness to follow it anywhere. And that's the end of the quote. But I would add to that, follow it particularly into an authentic spirituality. Even if that has us uprooting and reorganizing every room in the house. Now, when we heard Lawrence Krauss a little bit ago in that video, there were some things that I heard your reaction to. I heard some of you saying yes or nodding, and then I heard after he said something saying, ooh, what? No, maybe not. What? This is what it means to be exposed to all kinds of different thought. That we take our wisdom from the great texts of the spiritual traditions, we also take our wisdom from an atheistic thinker. There is wisdom in all places. It's for us to sort, to question, to say yes to that, no to that, and to understand that it all comes into developing this authentic spirituality that we want to be about. So let me say it this way. I appreciate the work that's been done by so many in this community over so many years to question, to bring us to the point where SSUC can be a place of inquiry, of rejecting some long-held and dangerous notions about religion and spirituality, and of opening ourselves to what new definitions we might come up with. To both honor the past and question it. To be those who are evolving in our journeys of understanding. Whether we call ourselves Christian, Buddhist, agnostics, ones who've not felt welcomed or involved in any Christian church, where folks feel free to call themselves atheists or post-theists, two of whom have told me just in the last few weeks that they've never felt free to say that out loud until they met us. That's a compliment to who you are and we are as a community. And that means that what we say at the opening of every gathering aren't just words. That when we say that this is a safe place for all, religions or none, traditions, spiritualities or none, that we mean it. And that's why we can find home here, a place to think and ponder, a place to grow with each other. And we can build on that strength. We have more work to do. Well, of course we do, right? as a help to those who are trying to make their way in a world beyond religion, and in claiming our spot as a supportive place where so many who are seeking to live more deeply, more maturely, more openly can do that in a good, safe, and caring place. And we'll build on that strength, just as we're engaging so many here, online and in person, who have come to us because we're not, quote, the typical church. We'll build on this. We'll get better at it. And we'll get better at communicating how, as a community, we meet the needs of so many that are looking for exactly that. We aren't any of us at a destination. If we think so, then there's more difficult and hard questions ahead. We're all walking this path of wonderful, thoughtful, challenging, spiritual legacy of this place. What's important to us right now? We can name any number of things. Some of them are on our values banner that stands in the corner, and others of them aren't there. And we have to leave room for even those to change, to be questioned, to be added to, edited. No matter when in our history what has seemed timeless has evolved and has to be updated, discarded, reformed. This is the work of being alive, and it's pretty exciting, actually. And we won't be daunted even though we're forging our own path. I don't think we ever have. Ever since this community was birthed, it's forged its own path. It never did things the way it was either expected or planned. And that's never stopped us before, so why should it now? It's possible because we'll work together to support one another in the broadening and deepening of our humanity. So I speak to us as a community, but obviously we're all engaging this as individuals too, in pondering where it is we want to grow and develop and question and ponder, reevaluate, tear apart, put back together. And it all starts with a junk drawer. Warning, it goes beyond there. And I'll leave you again with this encouragement that was good enough 2,000 years ago and might find hold again. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, walking around life, and make that your spirituality and your gift to the world. In the exciting and deep work ahead, may we all live to make it so. And so we change the light, as we do every time. The gathering of our community candle that brings us in also sends us out, doesn't it? The light that connects us also goes with us in new and different ways. And so as we change the light, may we share words together that strengthen our intentions. As we live each day, may our hearts be open to grow in love and in our search for what is true. As we seek to live meaningful lives, may we invest in deepening our questions, letting go of all that inhibits us, broadening our compassion, and lengthening our vision for what is possible. As those who continue to grow and evolve, may we live to make it so.